What's up, book brethren? Get comfy, get cozy. It's time to chill. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Emily, and this is Book Bits and Chill, the podcast where we break down every chapter, thirst over fictional men, and never take ourselves too seriously. And
That's
Cassie,
right.
let me tell you, I have
Tell
not
me.
read a book in a long time that I was sobbing in tears 30% in. Like, I barely
Same.
know the main characters, and I'm already sobbing over them. We
Wow.
need to get into Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid because I've been waiting to talk about this.
I have been desperate to talk about this since I finished the book and cried for 20 minutes after I was done. Just staring into the void, crying by myself.
Staring into space.
Staring into space. Spoiler, this book is about space. But that takes me to our State of the Union. As Emily said, we're talking about Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. We are going to try our best to keep this as spoiler free as possible, but warning, it's probably like light spoils that
Right.
aren't fully relevant, but maybe are just a little bit. But we're excited to get into it. We're excited to help you understand if you should read the book or not. So we'll give a light recap about what it's about. We'll talk about our favorite things about it, things that, maybe we didn't love so much about it, all of that good stuff. And then we'll get into our final rating and review to, again, help you understand if you should read it or not. So we'll kick it off with our summary. And I think Emily's going to teleport us to space.
I need to take you guys to Apollo 13 because I did not read the summary on this book. I barely looked at the cover before I started reading it, but I was just like, oh, it's Taylor Jenkins Reid. Like, everybody loves her books. I've read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Yeah.
I don't need an introduction. I needed an introduction, let me tell you. I was
We
shocked
did.
and awed by what this book was about. So the book is in the 1980s following a group of women astronaut trainees that are invited to join the trainee program at NASA. You don't know if they're going to go up in space at this time, but the main female character is Joan. And
Yep.
she was an astrologist turned astronaut trainee. And she's
Yep.
in love with the stars. And that's the whole reason she wants to go up in space. She starts going through the training program, realizes she's much better at this astronaut thing than she expected. And you start to meet a bunch of her friends that are in the program.
Yep.
That's when the book hits me, okay? We jump forward to present day. And the shuttle is in space, and some of Joan's friends are in the sky. Joan is not. She's on the ground, and bad things start happening. Chaos
Well,
isn't.
that was the craziest thing about this book. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Is that it literally starts out with this. Like first chapter, you are in the space shuttle with her friends while shit is just going absolutely haywire.
You
Like
barely know the characters' names.
You don't know who's who, what's going on, and you are just right in the middle of a full space shuttle catastrophe. It was wild.
I never expected this to happen literally from the jump. It's crazy how quickly this
Insane.
book gets into things. So Joan is on the ground as commander, and she is the one that's microphoning up to the space shuttle, trying to control the chaos. You start losing characters from like the third chapter. People are dying in space. I'm not going to tell you who, but people are going fast. And you don't exactly know what all of their relationships are at this point, just that they were all in the same trainee program. And so then the book continues to flash backwards and starts telling you like the origin story of their trainee program and how all of their relationships developed. So you're learning about how all these relationships developed with Joan, our girl on the ground. And it makes the first chapter so much worse. Like you start getting so emotionally invested and you already know what happens at the end. It's just a stab to the heart left and right.
It is. It is. And I think that this kind of gets into like who should even read this book and who probably shouldn't. And I feel like for me, I am such a like light space nerd, or like maybe even like a type B space nerd, where probably real space people would be like, you have no idea what you're talking about. But like, I love the stars. I love learning about constellations. Like I loved learning about
we
the
all love
early
a bit
days
of
of NASA.
astronomy.
Yeah. And so I loved this plot because I felt like it was subplot of space where I like learned a little bit, but it wasn't like overwhelming. The concepts weren't too much. And then I feel like the relationships and the romance were more at the forefront. So someone like
Yeah.
me, I loved it and I ate it up. But I do feel like someone who really knows what they're talking about when it comes to space
Yes.
and when it comes to the history of human beings in space would probably kind of struggle with that because I'm sure they would have wanted more.
That is such a good point. From a noob, I was like, oh, this is so smart. Taylor Jenkins Reid did so much research on this. She knows
Yeah.
everything there is to know about NASA.
Yeah, totally. And then I was reading Goodreads reviews,
God.
and I think one of the first one-star reviews was from a woman who either works in like astrophysics or physics or
She can't tell you.
something like
Security
that.
clearance.
She actually couldn't even tell us. She's like, this is redacted. She was just bashing it. And as I was reading the review, I was like, what? I could not have felt more the opposite. Like,
Well, and it's
I
not.
felt like I learned things through this book.
Yes, 100%. It's not a nonfiction book about space.
Oh.
There is this greater big story about life, identity, love,
Right.
relationships, and then you just get the nice subplot and nice disaster story of space.
Yeah, like they happen to be going through a catastrophic event in space while we're also learning a lot about the state of the world during that time and about these characters. And I felt that it was very well rounded in that way.
Yeah.
But again, I think if you actually have, like, if you are a woman in STEM, you might struggle with this. I think you might just be poking holes in this from the jump versus if you are someone like me who just literally looks at the stars and you're like, that's cool, then you would
Yeah.
probably like this.
I agree 100% with that. Women in STEM, stay away. We don't need your one-star reviews.
Which also, speaking about the state of the world during that time, I feel like I'm constantly mind blown by how recent all of this was. Like,
Right.
this is set in the 80s. Like, that is what, like 40 years ago, almost 50 years ago, maybe. And
Okay,
it's
so
talking about, yes,
the first chapter starts in 1984, but when
yeah,
it's jumping backwards, I don't remember what year it goes to.
I think
7
it's,
years earlier, so it's the
yeah,
mid 70s to mid
yeah,
80s. So like
yes.
our parents were alive.
Right. It's just so crazy. And like she touches on this a little bit in the book, but like even the rate of change and like innovation, when did people fly for the first time? I think they said it was
Yeah,
like the
the Wright
early
brothers. Yeah. So when I was looking up the history of NASA and women in space, so it was the 1960s that they first let women become astronaut trainees, but they weren't allowed to actually go into space because to go into space, you have, which Taylor Jenkins Reid taught me this, and it's accurate. I looked it up. To go into
Fact
space,
checked.
you had to be a military pilot. And at that time, women were not allowed to be military pilots, so you couldn't go into space. And so they let these trainees into the program for some odd reason. I can't really understand why, but it wasn't until 20 years later that they actually let a female go into space. And I need to shout out Sally Ride, first woman in space. I believe it was 1983.
Yep, which she talked about that. And I thought that was so interesting because there's a lot of elements in this book of like how much pressure there was on these early women who were either the, first trainees or Sally, who was the first woman to go to space, like, and how they represented themselves externally because it would essentially become the label or the mark that all women at that time would take on. And I think there was like some commentary on like them being so nervous when Sally was about to go up because if she made the smallest mistake, if something went wrong, like the blame would have been immediately put on her. And that trickle down effect could be so impactful that some young girl in kindergarten could say that she wants to be an astronaut and people would laugh in her face because of something random that might have happened to Sally that maybe was in or not in her control. And that was something that just the magnitude of these things and the weight that these women were taking on at the time is just so impressive.
Insane.
And based off of that, what did you think of that focus like on NASA and space and like these early women breaking, the glass ceiling in general.
Yes, I actually really appreciated it because I didn't realize how much went into being an astronaut. I think that,
Yeah.
like, from an everyday person, like you said, you look at the sky and you're like, oh my God, there's Cassiopeia. And then you're like, you
Oh,
know,
yeah, there's Cassiopeia specifically.
oh my gosh, like, let's watch this space launch go off. It's so cool. We put people in space. Like, but you don't realize the 10 years that that
Yeah,
person put in before they were allowed on that space
right.
shuttle.
Right. Well, and how much of their lives they're sacrificing
Yeah.
to go into space. Like to Emily's earlier point, the romance in this book is a queer romance, and that becomes a very big concern as it relates to their job security and the
Being like
general
public
perception.
facing.
Exactly. And like the potential to put NASA at risk because of their romantic relationship. Like the
Yeah.
entirety of NASA can be put at like public facing risk because two astronauts are in love who are of the same sex. Like it was
Yeah.
just absolutely mind blowing. And I feel like that was kind of the impact that I got when I read The Women by Kristen Hanna too,
Yeah.
where it was this very niche topic of these women that went to Vietnam and these war nurses, and it was something that I rarely thought about before, but then afterwards, like I still think about it to this day, and I
Yes.
feel like I got a lot of that from this too.
Yeah. Like I am going to be dropping facts about women in space for like the next year at least. And I did the same thing after The Women. Every time Cassie and I
Yeah,
saw
same.
a Vietnam veteran in public, we were like, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And that's what's so amazing about books. Like you can
Yes.
literally find a whole new appreciation for something just by the words an author writes.
Absolutely. It gives you a new level
Beautiful.
of empathy for what our people before us went through
And
so
I
that we could be here sitting and making a podcast from our beds.
exactly. And I have to tell you something slightly disappointing.
Oh, okay. Lay it on me.
So there have only been 76 women in space since 1983. And
Mhm.
not all of those people are part of NASA. Not all of them have like actually like broken the barrier that puts you into like orbitable space.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, one of those women is Katy Perry.
Why did I know that this is where this was going? And one of those women was also Gail King. I was like, how did Katy Perry get to go into space and show off her Butterfly album when
Yeah.
these women had to fight tooth and nail just to live out their lifelong dream? Oh gosh, Sally walked so Katy Perry could go into space.
Oh, God.
It's so bad. So I am interested because obviously we are fangirling on Taylor Jenkins Reid pretty
Yeah.
hard over this
Oh,
book.
yeah.
But she has actually caught some flack more broadly
Oh, yeah. I knew this was coming.
because because in a lot of her books it generally lacks representation of people of color. And as someone who has read multiple of her books, I do agree. And I think the challenge with it that I've at least had in my brain is like she's setting her books during these
Yes.
time periods where people of color were not highly represented, and they were obviously not as integrated into maybe a lot of the settings that she is writing about.
Yes.
But I felt like with this particular story, she really missed an opportunity to do that because she's obviously focusing on women and being very underrepresented in NASA, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of other people as well who were highly underrepresented in NASA. And like she even touched on it at a certain point where
There was like one sentence.
there was like one sentence where she essentially was like, women are whatever, like 1%. There's like 5 women that were let into the program, and there were, 10 men, like black men let in, and like 7 Asian men, and whatever. Like we're still by far the minority, which like totally agree. But she has this group of people that she focuses in on that becomes like this found family for Joan. And it's absolutely wild to me that she couldn't pull in one of those people.
Yes.
Like,
And
not one of those people could be like a side character, even. That was the one thing that I kind of really struggled with, was like that view of like the true representation of what was going on at that time.
And I really wanted to understand what was going on at that time. So I also looked up the history of African Americans in space, as
Hmm.
well as other minority groups. But the African Americans in space were actually at the same time as women. So these things were happening in
Yeah.
parallel. So at the same time that those 1960s women were in the training program, there was also a group of Black men. They were not
Yep.
women, they were Black men
Yep.
in the group as well. At the same time that Sally Ride was getting put up in a space shuttle, a few months later, the first African American in space, Guion
Yep.
Bluford, was
Let's go,
put
Gion.
up, and he was the one that paved the way for minorities to come. So, what I think I decided was that she chose to focus on women, like you said,
Yep.
and women of color specifically were definitely not getting put on a space shuttle. But I
Right.
do agree, like, obviously, Guion could have been in the training class. He literally went
Yeah.
up 3 months after Sally did. So, like,
Right.
there could have been side characters, even if
Right.
they were male,
Yeah.
in the training class.
Yeah.
And I do want to make a shout out to, not a shout out. This is a, like, I'm making demands. How do I want
Oh,
to say that?
list your demands.
I'm making demands to NASA right now because I have to tell you another unfortunate fact about space.
Is this to present day NASA?
Yes, present day
Okay.
NASA. Listen up, clean your ears. It's ready to hear some facts. Out
Okay.
of about 360 astronauts that have gone up in space with NASA,
Yeah.
only about 15 African Americans, 15 Asian Americans, and 15 Hispanic Americans, and only one Native American are included in that group. That is less than 4% of each minority group represented in all of NASA.
Uh,
And that is tough. So,
that
Taylor
hurts my
Jenkins
heart.
Reid, learn your lesson, but
Yep.
NASA,
But
please
NASA,
learn your lesson.
like, actually figure it out right now.
Yeah.
For the
Please.
love of God. Oh my God. Well, based off of this, since we both read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo,
Yeah.
how would you compare this versus that? I personally think that I liked this one more than Evelyn Hugo, but I also read that book actually probably 7 years ago. So
Same.
I
So,
maybe it's like recency bias, but I don't know. This one felt way more entertaining to read for whatever reason.
Evelyn Hugo, and I feel this way about a lot of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, like Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising, are very slow stories. They're very meaningful stories. They have, like, you get to the feels eventually, but they're like very slow to kick off. Like, you
Yeah.
really learn a lot about all the characters.
Yeah.
This book, getting straight into the action, I was like, once
Yeah.
you read chapter 1, you can't go back.
Yeah, that's so true. That's such a good point. This one was gripping from literally the first page of the book versus I
Yeah.
feel like the others you kind of really get into the good stuff like almost halfway through.
I was a little confused though. Like, the love story felt a little recycled from Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
I do agree with that, and I was gonna say that too. Like, I felt like she kind of pulled very similar elements that worked really well from Evelyn Hugo, where it was obviously a time where there was a lot of bias against same-sex relationships
Yeah.
and like the way that essentially like both of the main characters kind of like help each other come to this level of like acceptance of who they really are and how
Yeah.
they love other people and all of that stuff, which I thought was amazing in both stories, but
Right.
it was kind of repetitive where like there was one character who really already knew that about themselves and like had
Exactly.
started to accept it, and then there was one kind of like fresh newbie that like was not wanting to accept it.
Yeah.
And
That's the exact comparison that got me too, was that whole
yeah,
like, one's leading the way for the other to like
Right.
find herself. And I was
Right.
like, I actually, for all of the research I've done on NASA, I didn't do any research on Taylor Jenkins Reid. And so, like, maybe that's something that, like, was a pivotal part of her personal life. I really don't
Yeah,
know. But
true.
so maybe that's why she feels like she needs to shout it proud from the mountains. And
Yeah.
if that's
Yeah.
the truth, I will give her a break. But
Yeah.
from a reader
Yeah.
perspective, the love story was a little repetitive.
I would agree, but I do think that the love story hit me harder in this one, maybe because of the action that was tied to it. Like,
Yes,
it,
100%.
it was obviously way higher stakes, but I do feel like by the end, like they had just gotten to this place where they were just like ready to kind of risk it all for their love and for their relationship. And I thought that that was so beautiful. And there are obviously a lot of trials and tribulations that they through at the end that are very, very gut wrenching. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel maybe it was just literally the fact that it was like so much happening at the same time as like they were finding themselves through their love that made it feel more intense to me. But I don't know. I think I
It was
liked reading this one
definitely
more.
the associated actions
The
that you
associated
must
actions.
that you actually just need to read chapter 1 to know about.
Yeah, we're not NASA employees, but we will not be giving you these spoilers regardless.
um so speaking of the female main characters, like I said, the main character is Joan.
Yeah.
And what did you think about her?
Uh, I go back and forth because I think I identify so much more with the other main character
Okay.
that I don't know. I struggled with Joan a little bit. Like I liked her character arc, I will say. Like I think by the end when she was like much more accepting of herself, like she found her voice a little bit more, like she
Yeah.
understood herself a little bit more. I was able to empathize more with her, but I don't know. A lot of it, she was just kind of like a pushover wet blanket.
I liked her character arc. It was a slow burn character arc, not in a romance way, in like a finding yourself way, but
Yeah.
like in the scene where they're in New Orleans and she like gets drunk and lets loose and is like decides to put on the slutty dress
Yeah.
and like decides to drink more than she normally does. Like
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Joni girl, I see you. And then like from
Mm-hmm.
there on out, I felt like she kind of found her little zzzz.
She got a little zest in her.
She got
Yeah,
a
I
little zest in her.
I agree. I think that she was a necessary main character for all of the things that happened. Like, if she was another kind of like cowboy-esque personality, I think it would have been way too much. Like, I feel like that's how I feel about Feyre after our Akatar reread, where I'm like, is she my favorite? No, but is she kind of integral to the story and like to the other characters really being able to like shine in the way that they do? I think so.
Yeah. Isn't
So I can
that
appreciate that.
that's like an interesting thing we're seeing in books lately is like you almost come out liking the side characters more than the main character. But
Yes.
like you said, the main character is there to make the side characters shine. But
Yeah.
there's like quite a few books I walked away from this year where I was like, the side characters were amazing. The main
Yeah.
character could go.
Yeah, but I also think it's I like having this kind of main character in a series more because there is, for people who are a little bit quieter and more reserved and less confrontational and less kind of in your face, like there is such a like beautiful silent power to that I think like
Mm-hmm.
often can get glossed over when you have these like aggressively strong side
Yeah.
characters. And I always like in a series, like when you start out with a character like that and then they obviously grow within themselves and like you get to see that much more prominently.
Yeah.
Where like I felt like Joan got there at the end and we probably would have seen it much more if the book kept going past the end. But
Yes.
yeah,
If the
I don't
book
know.
should have kept going past the end.
Emily wanted like literally 40 pages of an epilogue after.
Yeah, and again, we can't give away any spoilers, but I needed the end to be again, yeah, like Cassie said, 40 pages longer. I needed so much wrap up.
I loved that there wasn't the wrap up that you were looking for. Like, I liked that. I liked that we could just like feel settled that what happened at the end happened
Okay, you
and
know
that they
how
probably went on to live a good life.
You know how the initial disaster at the beginning of the book started?
Yes.
They never wrapped that up about what happened with that astronaut that made the mistake. Like,
I don't actually feel like we need to know what happened, like what their
I do,
decision
because
was.
I think an astronaut would immediately get disbarred from NASA for that decision.
I would agree, but I also feel like that astronaut might have been already wanting to leave NASA based off of the events that occurred anyways.
Okay, that's fine, but we'll never know. But we'll never
That's fine.
actually know.
Okay, so let's get into our final rating because I feel like it's very clear that we feel that most people should read this.
Yeah,
Outside of maybe our beautiful women in STEM, I think you might struggle with this, but if you are
yeah.
not, then I think that you would love this book.
I have recommended this book to various people. My grandmother,
Yes.
at the family dinner, anybody that will listen.
Mm,
I went to a work conference, and anybody that
mm.
said sometimes I dabble in reading, I was recommending this book to. Like,
Yes.
so everybody that is not a bigot is going to connect to this book in some
Great.
way. Like, this is a good read.
Those are normally the people I'm recommending books to anyways, so that really
100%.
works
But,
out.
I went work conference, so I had to
True.
clarify.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah, I was also recommending this to a lot of people, and I feel like a kind of a way too that I think about how to recommend a book to a broader audience is if I think it would make a good like TV or movie adaptation.
Oh,
And I think that this would make an incredible adaptation, like TV or
100%.
movie. Like I think it would be incredible. And so I feel like for my TV girlies, like you guys would love this. Like if you love like a limited series that's really good,
Yeah,
really
it would have
dramatic,
to be
really hard hitting.
I want it to be a movie.
Yeah. But that's what I struggle with because I feel like every space movie that I watch now, I compare to Interstellar, and there's just quite literally no comparison.
That's
Or The
true.
Martian. Like The Martian was also just so good. So I feel like since this is like a space subplot, I'm like, I almost don't want it to go to movie
But it
because,
needs to be then a series that's only like 6 episodes, because
yeah, limited series.
with the flashbacks and like then back to this disaster to the present day, back, like it needs
Yeah.
to move quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I also feel like I recommend books that make me cry a lot and also make me like feel something so deeply. And I
Illicit emotion. Yeah.
elicit this emotion that obviously I know that I have, but like just typically these stories really pull out of me. And
Yeah.
I felt that way about this, where I was just at the end so happy that what happened, but also so angry that like these astronauts are in their final moment and they don't feel like they can like really be themselves and like really
Yeah.
show what they feel. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, I am obviously so thankful to be where we are today as a society, even though there's so much fucking work for us to be
NASA.
doing. NASA, I am thankful that at least today we would be able to like articulate our feelings towards another
Yeah.
person that might be in a
Right.
dire situation. And I was just like, oh my God, like how lucky are we? And how fucking awful is it that they were not able to do that? I don't know. There was just so
Yeah.
many things that it pulled out of me. And mostly that I love how amazing women are.
Yeah.
I
And
literally think that we are incredible.
this is exactly what we came away with when we read Kristen Hanna's The Women too. We were
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
women are unstoppable.
I was like, women are literally everything.
The brain of a woman is unlike anything to exist.
It is. It's incredible. It's like
What we can
the
balance.
best place to be and also the scariest place to be at the same time.
Yeah. Also, I think that this is so funny. On the back of the book, the author quotes from other authors is Kristen Hanna, author of The Women, and Andy Weir, author of The Martian, which is two things
there
you
you go.
just shouted
There you
out
go.
that
There
this
you
would
go.
be a good recommendation for.
There you go. And I do think like if you liked The Women, probably even if you liked like a Project Hail Mary or even The Martian,
Yeah.
if you liked I read Lessons in Chemistry a few years ago, and I felt very similar emotions come out of me from this book too. I feel like you would love this book. It'd be a no-brainer to read.
Also, when I was looking up the history of people of color in space, that it reminded me of that movie that's based off a book, The Hidden Figures, which was about
Yes.
3 African American women that did all of like the math equations that got a shuttle into
Yes.
space. So if
Yes.
you vibed with that movie or you read that
Ugh.
book, I also recommend this one because I think that you would enjoy it.
I vibed so hard with that movie, and Octavia Spencer is literally everything to me. Okay, in terms of additional things about this book, so spice, not really present. Like, very
Very
closed
closed
door.
door.
Very
Very
closed
closed
door.
door.
Not the vibe. The door is shut, if you can't tell.
Like you were looking in the crack hoping to see something,
Like
but
literally on the bottom of the door crack, like not it's not
yeah,
even cracked open.
right.
Um the book Hangover, I feel like was fairly significant, at least
Yes,
for
I
me. Like
agree.
I was thinking about this book for a while. Again, I was literally crying for 20 minutes after I closed the page, the last page, and I was just staring at the wall, being like, what just happened? So
I had to pick up my book club book that I'm not super excited about after this book, and I was literally
yeah.
like, I'm disgusted with other authors right now. I'm disgusted with other books. I need to read Atmosphere again.
I need to get back into space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the hangover was real for this one.
Yeah.
And I do also like, I think another big piece is like if it's a potential good book club pick, and I think it's a great one.
Oh,
Like
5-star book club pick. Like,
I think that book clubs would eat this up, and it would cause so much like even just discussing between you and I feel like we could probably go on for this about this for 2 more hours
oh,
and
100%.
have way more to say. So I feel like this would be perfect for a book club. And the length wasn't that crazy either.
No, I'll tell you how much it was. It was
Mm.
about just over 300 pages.
Well, if you like women, if you like space, if you like romance, if you like the 80s, if you maybe ever said in kindergarten, maybe I would go up into space, this book
Yeah.
is perfect for you. So
I might be an astronaut for Halloween.
oh shit. Wow. Okay. Maybe we could both be one. I'll be the
Yeah.
pilot and you be the Capcom.
Perfect.
Well, I'm giving this book I think a 5-star, honestly.
I am giving it a like 4.9. And
Oh
I'm
my
only
God.
taking the 0.1 away because I needed it to go on for another 50 pages.
Okay. Well, disclaimer, Emily's actually giving it a 5, but she just wants to throw some drama in there.
Okay, it's actually a 5, but I need Taylor Jenkins Reid to tell me how it really ended. Like, I know it's like really popular for her to do spin-offs of characters in this book, so she better do a spin-off with a character from this book that tells me what happened after these series of events.
There you go. And you better put some people of color in that book, Taylor.
Call to action.
There you go. All right. Well, I think that probably wraps up this recommendation. I'm pretty sure everyone should read this book. So,
100%.
what are we talking about next week? I think we're chit-chatting on all the things we've been reading and what's been going on
Yeah.
in general in our book world, and
Doing a little
things
goss sesh.
doing a little gosh sesh on things we think you should read, things that aren't worth the hype. We might even talk about who our new book boyfriends are.
Ooh.
Spoiler.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert. We'll see you then. Same time, same place. Bring your blankets, bring your book boyfriends, and we'll see you then.
See ya.